A lot of times everybody is focused in Africa manufacturing for the world. No, first Africa has to manufacture for itself and then easily we can export. My belief is the industrialization journey in Africa has just begun, but it is going to multiply at very different speed and pace than we have seen before.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the CEO series by FDI Intelligence. Our show every 2 weeks will bring you insights from the corporate leaders at the forefront of foreign direct investment and the global economy. Today we'll try to answer a question that has been debated for decades. Can Africa become a manufacturing powerhouse with its deep pool of young talent and natural resources? Few persons than the guests that we have with us today are better placed to answer this question. I'm your host, Jacopo Tritoni, and today I'm here with Gagan Gupta, the CEO of Arise IIP, a pan-African developer of industrial zones, and arguably one of the single largest foreign contributors to the industrialization of African countries. Gagan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Yaku, for having me.
Arise is a remarkable story. Since launching in 2010, you have set up 7 operating industrial zones with another 8 in the pipeline. What would be your message to African policymakers willing to attract investment in their manufacturing sectors and really move up the value chain of their natural resource clusters?
I think foremost, when I look at the African industrialization journey, if you look at it, there are 3 fundamental factors that make it very attractive, as you rightly pointed out. First, availability of manpower. So today, one situation you have where most of the countries are looking to create jobs. So you have a lot of manpower already available. Second aspect is really all these countries have a lot of resources. So a country has natural timber non-processed, natural cotton non-processed, or a natural manganese non-processed. So the raw material is already there. I think thirdly, the political will is beginning to get there. If you ask me what has happened in the past, most of the time, most of the countries were told it is not possible to do it. So they have been told for the last 50 years it's not possible to transform. And what Arise has done is has broken that myth, has broken that battle in the mind, it is not doable to saying it is doable. What has Arise essentially done? If you go back 2010, our first industrial zone in Gabon, people didn't believe that we can transform timber into finished product in Gabon. I mean, Gabon went on from exporting round logs to second largest exporter of veneer globally, exporting into India, into China and Vietnam. Unheard of an African country going to export to processing hub like India, China and Vietnam. If you look at cotton in Benin, I mean, we have gone from raw cotton now to exporting to Kiabi, to exporting to Auchan, to exporting to the Children's Place or to other brands. I think what Arise fundamentally does is, Arise shows it is possible to do it. And that's what Arise strength is. Now what it does is, once we have done it, say in Gabon, once you've done it in Benin, other countries begin to clearly see it is possible to do it. And that changes the entire paradigm. So today, I don't think any policymaker has any doubt in his mind that it is not possible to do it. They believe it's possible to do it. I think what lacks a lot of time is 3 things. First, somebody who can build the ecosystem. So what Arise role is really to build the ecosystem. What I mean by ecosystem, you need to look at sector saying that, okay, if you're going to build cotton sector, we need gas, we need cotton, we need trained manpower, we need energy at competitive price, and somebody needs to put all this together. And that is what is missing. And then somebody working hand in hand with the government to say this is the policy framework that is required, because each sector will have its own policy framework. And therefore, my belief is the industrialization journey in Africa has just begun, but it is going to multiply at very different speed and pace than we have seen before.
And by the way, not only you're trying to catalyze industrial development in your industrial parks, but you also founded a startup producing electric bikes called Spiro, which is now valued as the largest electric mobility company in Africa, and you're producing out of a number of countries, namely Kenya, Rwanda, and Uganda. So what has been your experience so far manufacturing within African countries?
So today we are manufacturing in Kenya, in Uganda, in Rwanda, in Nigeria. And our experience has been more than positive in the sense that we see that the manpower is quite productive. And therefore, we have now decided to go to the next stage of manufacturing. So we are building 4 mega plants in Kenya, in DRC, in Ethiopia and Nigeria. And these mega plants will be actually manufacturing each and every component in the continent, which means if the SMT, which is the chipboard that goes into the battery, that will be printed in Africa, which means tires will be made there, which means the frame will be not assembled but produced in the country. And we expect this to be operational Q2 of next year. I mean, that's truly manufacturing. And to your point, I think you have raised a very fundamental point, which I keep telling all the stakeholders. A lot of times, everybody is focused in Africa manufacturing for the world. No, first Africa has to manufacture for itself. And then easily we can export. And I'll just give you 2 or 3 things. For example, Africa imports anything between $35 to $40 billion of textiles. And that's roughly about 8 to 10 million of jobs. Forget export market. You have internal market of $35 to $40 billion sitting now in here, which you don't need to go and compete with anyone. If you think of what Spiro is going to do to the whole debate that we have, that Africa has resources in terms of minerals, not transformation, Spiro is going to change that completely. How and why? Because now Spiro uses batteries, and this year we'll be buying batteries worth $400 million. Next year, close to $1 billion batteries. So we have gone back to our suppliers and said, you know what? Next year onwards, you have to start manufacturing these batteries in the continent, which essentially means all this talk of saying that copper or the cobalt is not getting transformed will change, because here there's a user who is willing to buy these batteries, and there's a supplier who's anyways buying this raw material, taking it to, say, China or other country and bringing it back, is now happy to relocate supply chain to Africa. So Spiro will not just drive the manufacturing of bikes, but it's going to drive manufacturing or core transformation of the mineral industry. So we have 2 battery manufacturers now looking to set up battery manufacturing plants in the continent.
So to what extent electrification bottlenecks in the grids of African countries where Spiro is operating become also a bottleneck for the deployment of your electric bike solutions?
The cost of operating an electric bike is cheaper than a cost of a fuel bike by about 30 to 40% depending on the market. So the natural question is why the adoption has not happened. The adoption has not happened because nobody has built the ecosystem. What I mean by ecosystem? Today, if you go back in 19th century, imagine when the cars came, if person was riding a horse, he will think twice before buying a car because he was not sure where will he put the fuel. Maybe the fuel is only available in the town but not in the upcountry. Same applies to electric bikes. When somebody buys an electric bike, he is not sure where he will be able to charge his bike, or how much time will it take to charge, or how will he get the so-called energy fuel. And therefore, from a Spiro's perspective, we did 2 things. First, we said we need to give a same experience to the customer as he has with the fuel, which means what? You go to a fuel station, you put the fuel in 2 minutes and you continue. And therefore, we said, we'll not follow a charging model, we'll follow a swapping model. You come, you bring your battery, we'll give you a battery, you go back in less than 2 minutes. Secondly, we said you need to build out swap stations. So the range anxiety is not there. So today we have 2,500 swap stations. So we have density in some places of less than 5 kilometers. So you can come and swap your battery. That takes away the point about range anxiety. The third part which you've said very important is how do you get the energy? And therefore what we have done is we have integrated our swap stations with solar energy. So we have put new energy generating capacity. So today about 100,000 swap happen on a network every day. We are growing on a monthly CAGR of 16%. So between first week of June and first week of May 2026, we have grown by 16%. So it's a 16% month-on-month growth we're experiencing. Just to give some statistics, Rwanda this month will be selling 5,000 bikes. They'll represent 90% of the bikes sold in the market. Not EV bikes, 90% of the total bikes sold in the market will be electric. Out of that, about 95% will be Spiro. Come to Kenya, we'll be selling about 25 to 30% of the bikes sold in this month will be electric. So the adoption is going at a very different pace just because it makes sense from all perspective. And what you need for this is really large capital. And therefore, we did a capital raise recently. We are going to do another capital raise, tomorrow. We'll be announcing, which is, about with a Chinese investor. And then we are hoping to announce another round later in the month. So in all, Spiro would have raised in this month $400 million of equity capital.
China has dominated investment into African manufacturing over the past few years. but also investors from the Gulf have become important investors in the continent. Arise itself is a Dubai-based company, and also other kind of like African companies from African countries are becoming prominent investors. Companies from Nigeria, Morocco, and the likes. What has yet to happen for investors from the West, the Western world, to buy into the African growth story?
I think we have to step back for a minute and think 2-3 things. First, where is the global manufacturing hub anyways concentrated today? So the global manufacturing hub today is concentrated in Southeast Asia. Most of the manufacturing is happening in that part of the world, is not happening in the western part of the world. Therefore, the companies that manufacture are actually in that part of the world. So it's natural that those companies will come in, set up manufacturing. Secondly, if you just think from a perspective that within Africa, who is supplying these products today? These products are being supplied by Southeast Asia. They're not coming from West. And therefore, these companies are saying, guys, we will lose our market because somebody will come and establish manufacturing in Africa. So let's continue to manufacture and continue to have a market, and therefore natural move. For me, I think one of the key things that is driving that China as a country will not export production, will export production capacity. So one thing that will change in my view is rather than they just exporting finished goods, they'll start exporting manufacturing capability. And to attract West, my thinking is it's really to attract capital to the West to do it. Like in Spiro's case, now IFU, they're not a manufacturing organization, but they have given capital to Spiro to set up manufacturing in the continent. So you will see a lot of capital of the West which will actually help in the industrialization journey of Africa. Not necessarily manufacturing itself, but the capital that will play an important role in doing it.
Investors from the Gulf have become important sources of capital for African countries. Do you expect the US-Israel conflict with Iran and its impact on the region to reduce outbound investment from the Gulf into African countries?
My belief is that the recent events are not going to change the long-term trend of Gulf capital coming into Africa. I don't think so that's going to change. I have not seen anybody saying, oh, because of this, we are not going to consider it. I don't think so. So in my view, that does not impact Africa.
But don't you expect that there will be pressures, domestic pressure in the Gulf countries to redeploy some of their outbound investment domestically in the wake of this conflict?
Yes, but that will not change, the long-term importance that Africa has for these countries. I mean, you want to secure investments, but at the same time, you want to secure the future. And therefore, this will go hand in hand. If at all, I'll see it accelerate the investment in the continent. So discussions I've been having with, some of the investors, they're saying, Gagan, how can we do more in Africa to secure our supply chains? What can we do more in the continent?
Gagan Gupta, CEO of Rise IIP and Executive Chairman of Spiro, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, pleasure is mine.
Thanks everyone for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe, or else follow us on fdiintelligence.com. Until the next time.